Good morning. Today we are starting a new book. I'm excited. We're going to start the book of First John. When I became a new Christian, 40 years ago, I was exposed to John MacArthur. Exposed sounds like a bad word. Someone turned me on to John MacArthur, and he suggested that as a new Christian, you read the book of First John every day for 30 days. That's what I did, and the concepts were amazing to me. So I'm excited to do this, but we're going to give you some background information before we jump in. So the book itself is written by the Apostle John, same author who wrote the Gospel of John. And John probably wrote this late in his life, in probably the 90s. It's possible history would suggest that John is the last apostle alive. And he was the youngest probably, and all the rest have been killed. And he's the last one alive. He's probably living in Ephesus. And there's a new growing heresy called Gnosticism that John is addressing. Gnosticism had a few different things that were that were prominent in it that were affecting Christianity. One of those things was the idea of all matter is evil. Every physical thing is evil. Rocks, trees, buildings, it's all evil. And only the spiritual is good. Physical things are evil. So therefore, God could not have become a human being because then he'd become evil. So Jesus only seemed to be human. It's called Docetism. Jesus only seemed to be human. Docetism comes from a Greek word called dokeo, that means it seems like. So this was a belief that was starting to spread within Christianity, and John is addressing that in this book. He never mentions those words specifically, but we're going to see that John is addressing a belief of another Jesus. Someone has taken the real Jesus and morphed him in to fit their thinking, and John is saying that's not a real Jesus. In fact, that Jesus comes from the Antichrist, we're going to learn. Another aspect of Gnosticism was secret knowledge, that the powers that be in the universe would give secret knowledge to certain people, and if you wanted the truth, you had to go to those certain people. So we'll see both of these refuted in this book. John's big concern, pastorally, is that he's addressing people who have a Christianity that don't appear to have any fruit. A belief in Jesus, or following of Jesus, but there's no evidence in your life. And the evidence that John is going to hit on hard is, do you love your brother and sister? And is there a fruit of a righteous living in your life? Because he's very strong and very harsh. He said, if you say you love God and hate your brother, you are not a Christian. If you say you love God, but there's no fruit of righteousness, then you're a liar. The truth's not in you. So we're going to see these very stark concepts that we have to talk about. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into the book of 1 John. We're going to read the first 4 verses is all today. I think that's all we're going to do. The introduction. It's a different introduction than most letters in the New Testament. There's no, hi, I'm John, and I'm writing to so-and-so. But let's look at it. John, as an apostle, is going to establish who he is. He uses the plural, we. Now, does he have other writers he doesn't identify? Is he talking about the apostles as a whole of who he represents, is what I think he's doing, to represent the fact that we know the real Jesus. So let's jump in. Verse 1. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our own eyes, which we have looked upon and have touched with our hands concerning the word of life. So John here calls Jesus the word of life. First title he uses for Jesus. And he says, we have seen him, we have heard him, and then he says, we have looked upon him, which is a more intense word for seeing. It's kind of studying with your eyes. And we've touched with our hands. The life was made manifest. So first Jesus is called the word of life. Now he's called the life. The life was made manifest. And we have seen it and testified to it and proclaimed to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and was made manifest to us. So Jesus is called the word of life, the eternal life. And all these things were made manifest by the Father. And we saw him. We touched him. We heard him. We know what we're talking about. This is kind of a interesting way to talk about John's apostolic authority. And I would suggest all the other apostles are being included in this. He goes on with some repetitive thoughts. That which we have seen and heard, we proclaim also to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And we are writing these things so that our joy may be complete. So here we just got done with Paul. Here John kind of brings it to a point why he's writing this. We've seen and heard him. We know what we're talking about. We are an authority on this. in the background of all this is Jesus appointed the apostles. He taught them for 3 years and then sent them into the world. Now you have a teaching that's suggesting something very different than the apostles taught. And John is saying, no, 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 no. We were with him. We saw him. We heard him. We studied him. We touched him. We know he's physical. We'll get to that later, especially in chapter 4. And now, that which we've seen and heard, this Jesus that we know, the word of life, the eternal life himself, we are proclaiming to you. And here's why we're proclaiming to you. We want you to have fellowship with us, because our fellowship is with the Father. You see, John knows that everything goes through the Father. To get to the Father, you go through the Son. Jesus said that very clearly in the Gospel of John. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You want to know the living God? It's through me, Jesus said. John is saying the same thing in different words. But let's just finish today's talk here with this idea of, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. The idea of fellowship is a community. It is a oneness. It is a closeness. The word fellowship can be translated as sharing something together, living together. It's an intense New Testament word to describe the church of the living God. We're just not a social group. We are a fellowship. And John says, you want to be part of us? We want you to be part of us. Let me tell you who this Jesus was and who this Jesus is. So that's what this book is about. You want fellowship with the Father and you want fellowship with his Son? It comes through the teachings of the apostles. That's what John is saying here. In the last verse there, and we are writing these things, he tells you why the rest of the things are going to be written, so that our joy may be complete. It's interesting that some manuscripts say your joy may be complete. Others say that our joy may be complete. The word in Greek is very similar, and it's common when copyists, scribes, copied the manuscripts. They change it from yours to ours or ours to yours. But both make sense here. You see, John wants his readers to have fellowship with him and with the Father and Son. So either way, we're writing these things so our joy will be complete. In other words, our joy will be over the moon because you believe in the right Jesus and you're having fellowship with us and with him. Or your joy will be complete because if you really know the living Jesus, your joy is going to be amazing. That's what John is saying here. Whether it's our joy or your joy, both fit the context. So that's where we're going in this book. We're going to hopefully increase our joy because our joy will be with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. Let's always remember, there are false Jesuses out there. Paul says that in 2 Corinthians. He says that in Galatians. People have taken the living Jesus, the real Jesus, distorted the teaching, and created these false Jesuses that more palatable to people. And we have to be on our toes, be fully alert to not listen to false teaching. The teachings that we need to follow come through the apostles, and it was written down in the New Testament. That's why the Bible is so important as our authority. We want to know the real Jesus. He spent time with the apostles. They wrote down what he wanted them to write down, given it to us, and we must study it, read it, learn it, cherish the truths as we pursue God through it. So this is the beginning of the study in 1 John as we pursue fellowship with the living God and his Son, Jesus Christ. I'm very excited. We'll talk tomorrow for more.